thank you so much for joining me, Mr. Mariwala. Truly a pleasure having you on this special show and talking about your life journey, and what a journey it has been.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
You're a Bombay boy,
Yes,
South
absolutely.
Bombay boy.
Yes.
Schooled in Bombay,
Yes.
went to New Era,
Yep.
New
Yeah.
Era.
Yeah.
Then went on to Sydney,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So tell me, during those years, you were always a South Bombay boy, which
Yeah.
means that you were a rich kid.
Well, I wouldn't say that we are middle class or poor. I don't know how rich were we, but in spite of the fact that okay, we had some family wealth, we had a simple lifestyle, and I think that is something which was instilled in me by my grandfather. I think I was well grounded from that point of view, and I think that is a good thing.
So your family business
Yeah.
was Bombay Oil Company.
One of the companies was Bombay Oil Industries. Yeah.
So as a family, as a joint family, you all had
Yes.
many businesses.
We had Bombay Oil Industries, which had three different businesses. We had Jagdish Oil Industries, which had Vanaspati business in Gujarat. We had a trading business in trading in spices, again in Bombay. So primarily there were three companies.
In a typical Gujarati family that have got established businesses, it is expected that the sons will take on the mantle of the business. Was that an expectation your family had of you?
See, I am the eldest from the next generation. So my father was the eldest, and I had three uncles, and I was the first person to join the business from the next generation. And it was a typically family managed business where everything was done by family members and some of family friends. And I think it was from that point of view not at all professional. And we are located in the heart of commodity markets in Masjid Bandar. So, yeah, the expectation was that you'll do something to do with business. I wanted to go abroad to study.
Okay.
I couldn't get admission into IIM or Bajaj that time.
But did you try?
I tried,
Okay.
but I didn't succeed. I was not top of the line in terms of my academic studies. I couldn't get in, and I told my father I want to go abroad. He said no. I don't know why. He thought I'll never come back, or if marry somebody else.
Marry a white girl.
Marry a white girl. I don't know what, but he just prevailed. But in those days, I mean, we were far more obedient as kids compared to today's kids, you know.
That's true.
So I said, okay, no, father is saying no, so I have to agree. So I, like a good little boy, I joined business at a fairly young age. At the age of 20, I started working.
You were, mentally conditioned that this is what you had to do. It's not that you had another dream.
But I was clear that I wanted to run my own business, and that I didn't want to work for somebody else. So I could never have imagined that I'm an employee of somebody else's company, you know. So
And that has actually not been ever true, right?
Yeah.
Never worked for somebody else.
Nobody knows.
So you joined Bombay Oil Company.
Yes, yeah, Bombay Oil.
Straight out of Sydney.
Share also, yes.
And then what happened?
And then, as I mentioned to you, there were no professionals, so there was no training program or, my father just let me loose and said, okay, you do whatever you feel like doing. You visit the factories, you visit the markets, you visit customers. So whoever was doing that particular part, I would just, first, I think few months, I just started exploring. And in that process of exploration, I realized that we had an edible oil business,
Okay.
which was mainly selling edible oils in non-branded, in bulk, in barrels, to industries, in big tins, to trade. But we had these two brands, Saffola and Parachute, mostly sold in bulk containers, and in turn the retailer would sell it loose.
Oh, okay.
So the business was not doing that well, that particular business. And I realized that if we can convert that business from unbranded to branded, then we would be creating a business which is far more profitable, far more sustainable, and which would be growing regularly on a regular basis.
Let me stop you there. So, you were, straight out of Sydney, young boy.
Yeah.
You would not know anything about, brands or building brands.
No, I didn't know
I didn't
anything.
think you had ever
And
studied
nobody has
research.
told me, nobody has taught me anything,
So how did the trigger come? So when you saw this and you
Yes.
knew that you had
Yeah.
these, brands which were being sold
Yes,
in
yes.
at wholesale,
Yes.
how did that thought come in your mind?
So I think some trigger I got from, we were supplying a lot of coconut oil to a company in East Shalimar, and we used to supply by tanker loads through railways, and all my uncles and father and all, they would go on talking about, see how this guy has created a brand and we should be doing something like that. So somewhere in that conversation, something must have dropped into my mind in terms of, okay, if he can do it, why can't we do it? And that company was based in Calcutta and only East-centric and still remains East-centric, And that's how I started, and we didn't have any professionals, so I started identifying individuals who could help me because we were located in the heart of commodity markets.
Right.
In Masjid Bandar, and when you call people for an interview, half the people would just run away before coming to the office because it is so difficult to get into the small lanes and traffic jams and trucks and handcarts and whatnot. So how do you overcome that? And so I used to call people to the Indian club. My father was a member, and then prepare them mentally what they are going to face, and then get them to the office. But the initial phase is what happens is you are not able to attract talent because the company doesn't have an image, they didn't have the good location. So I started relying on individual consultants who would help me in those functional areas.
Okay.
So in HR, I started working with somebody who helped me set up the basic systems like appointment letter to leave policies to whatever else. In marketing, I started working with a consultant from Indian Institute of Management in Dubai. And he was a marketing professor there. And he was so busy during the day that he made it conditional that, okay, if you want to consult with me, you have to come by the evening flight and we'll spend the whole night discussing.
Wow.
And we'll go back in the morning. So I have umpteen number of times I've gone to Calcutta, Ahmedabad, spent the night with him, most of the time discussing, and come back in the morning. But you have to do these kind of things. You, as an entrepreneur, you never give up. And that experience of working with those consultants really helped me gain the knowledge, the functional knowledge. I started attending a lot of training programs, short-term training programs at Administrative Staff College and many other places. So I think I was able to, if you're self-motivated in my opinion, then you overcome all these issues. So expanding distribution, first we were only present in part of Maharashtra and part of Gujarat. And I started touring in interior markets in Maharashtra. And started appointing distributors and started retailing the products myself.
This is when you already figured out that you wanted Sephora and Parachute as retail brands.
Yeah, I didn't figure out that, but I thought, yes, let me try in that area.
But the packaging and all was not like that.
No, the packaging underwent change.
Okay.
It was mainly in big tins, and we had to make some changes in the small packs. But a lot of people told me, why Parachute? What is the connection of Parachute to coconut oil?
That's true.
And some of my uncles told me, raw Parachute, you never succeed in Parachute. And I don't know what came over me. I said, no, Parachute it was getting traction in the market. So I said, getting traction, why unnecessary?
And these were names that had come from long before.
Long. So Fuller came from safflower oil.
Okay.
And Parachute came from those days. I'm talking of World War II days.
Wow.
The Parachute was new, and it had to signify something to the trade, and it had like an umbrella kind of a thing on the label.
Right.
So in the trade, it was known as Chhata brand because it looked like a chhata,
Right.
So, but then I continued with the brand name, and I think over a period of time, I started expanding distribution. It expanded from Maharashtra to Gujarat to West, and then went to South, and then North, and East, and it took almost 5-7 years for me to expand all over the country.
Pan-India.
Yeah.
Who were your key competitors then in the market?
At that time, in edible oils, we had Postman, which was a big brand. In coconut oil, we had Tata. We also had AO brand, which some of them have just vanished, I think these were some of the key brands.
And these were established brands in the market?
Yeah, they were far ahead of us. When I started, we had a very low market share, So how do you gain market share? Distribution can take you up to a certain point.
Sure.
But by sheer distribution, you just cannot increase market share dramatically, and that's where innovation came in,
So while I want to talk about your big highlight in your journey a little later, before I do that, can you talk to me a little bit about your failures?
So I think if I had to identify one or two failures in my initial phases, I didn't pay so much attention to quality control department, and we had launched a new product, and because quality controls were weak, the product had a lot of insects, edible oil, new brand which we had launched, and all of a sudden it was so scary that we had launched a product which had bad quality, and it just opened up my eyes, and he said we have to go overboard on quality, and we have to ensure that quality is the first thing, When you are small and when you don't want to add overheads, then you start taking some shortcuts.
Sure.
In terms of legal issues and all that. So many times, once there is some provision in our business that you have to have certain stocks, and you have to declare where you are holding the stocks. And we didn't declare at some of the locations, and 2-3 of our guys got arrested, and that really scared me. I said, I can't take shortcuts on legal fronts. So I think those learnings have helped me set up some other functions where I was neglecting, whether it's legal or quality assurance. So that's one set of learnings. We selected some wrong product choices.
Okay.
We entered tooth powder because there are a lot of financial benefits in locating tooth powder. If you had a less than certain number of workers, no Excel and all, and we launched a tooth powder and again developed the formulation not through a very structured product development route. So the product had some problem, and more importantly, we were facing a very strong competitor in Colgate.
Sure.
And that completely bombed, So that taught me a lot of areas where we should operate in. So the product portfolio choice, where you have a higher right to win, is very important. So from then onwards, we go into great details. Do we have the right product? Do we have a strong right to win?
In which year did you, manage to establish Parachute and Saffola as, household name in India?
So I think I started working in the year 71, and by the time I think these brands reached a certain critical mass, I think it was in mid-80s.
Mid-80s.
Yes. About 10 years. I started actually working on this brand around 74, 75. About 10 years we spent in terms of distribution expansion and then innovation through a packaging route. We converted the whole market from tin to plastics, and not only in coconut oil but in edible oil also.
Yes.
So, and that gave us a great increase in market share. So in 85 we had a market share where we became clear market leaders. We thought we had a winner of a hand, but we went through a huge learning curve in that also, because the retailers were just not interested in talking, because the rats used to bite those bottles, and we had to design a bottle which is a round shaped bottle, and we kept those bottles in rat cages. With those pictures we went back to the trade and told them that this is something which is not happen, and we will, if there is a damage to the bottle, as well as something, if your shop gets spoiled because there is spillage of oil, because of rat bites, we will reimburse you.
Wow.
And it took again 8 to 10 years for us to get the conversion from tin to plastics, and that to me, today the whole market is in plastics,
Yeah.
But at one level it looks very simple, but any innovation, apart from ideation, it requires a lot of persistence. You need proper execution, and I used to monitor every month what is the contribution of plastics.
You said when you started off, your biggest, disappointment was attraction of talent.
Yes.
When did that change?
So that changed in the year 1990. In around mid-80s, I realized that being a part of Bombay Oil Industries, there were no synergies in terms of 3 different businesses, and there were many family members. It was very strongly perceived as a family-managed company, and we had to attract talent from MNCs, and being located in Masjid Bandar. So I was able to convince the family that can I take this business from Bombay Oil to Marico.
Wow.
It took me 2-3 years for me to convince them, and in 1990 that happened. So in 1990, the consumer products business of Bombay Oil Industries was taken over by Marico, and that gave me a great opportunity to attract talent, because we had to create impression in the job market that we are a
Professional
managed company. So the brief given to the ad agency was, we don't have too much money, it's a new company, I don't have reserves, so it has to make an impact in the job market. And I must say the ad agency came up with a brilliant campaign. 200 employees walk out of Bombay Oil, a mask killer nabbed, and it was like a shock value advertising, and we just had 2-3 insertions out of in leading newspapers, and within a period of 1 year we must have recruited some like 50 senior people, top and senior middle level new employees. But the first employee I took was HR head, because he had to have the credibility. Me saying that it is not a family managed would not have the same level of credibility as against the respected HR head who was earlier working in Asian Paints and some other companies.
So Marico was set up in 1990.
Yes.
1990.
Yes.
By then, all your brands had already gotten critical mass?
We just had two brands at that time.
Saffola
and within Saffola and Parachute, we just had one option. Parachute coconut oil and Saffola safflower oil, refined safflower oil.
Okay.
So now we have many options
Yeah.
in terms of brand extension, but at that time we just had two options.
Okay.
When we took over the business, it had a turnover 80 crores.
80 crores.
So now from 80 crores, we have gone to wherever.
Yeah. But even 80 crores is a big deal at that time.
Yeah. So,
you know.
yeah.
So I want to talk to you about how levers at some point is such a big part in
Yes.
your life,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I want to talk to you about that phase when, before the acquisition of Nihar,
Yes.
what happened?
Yes.
Levers was
Sure.
this giant.
Yes.
You were, a startup then.
Yes.
And what happened there?
Yes. So before that, let me just say we went public in 1996.
Okay. So before that, so let me just flash back.
Yes.
So 90 to 96.
A lot of energy went into culture building and talent attraction. We didn't have a lot of reserves, so our debt equity was very high. So first few years we said that let's just improve our financials because we had inherited a business of 80 crores on a very small share capital of 90 lakhs. So we had to improve our financials, and we said that first 2, 3, 4 years we will just do that. We launched 2 other new brands, Hair and Care and Sweetheart, in those 3, 4 years. And in 1996 we went public. Around 97, 98, Levers had acquired Tata Oil Mills. And as a part of that acquisition, they had inherited a coconut oil brand. And they also bought one more brand from the market, Coco Care. And they were riding very high because they were very successful in the oral care segment, where they had launched Signal and Pepsodent and given a big hit to Colgate in terms of market shares. And they wanted to do the same thing in the coconut oil segment. So there was a huge fear within the company, and that fear was spread in our trade also because the Lever apparently wanted to acquire us.
Sure.
But I was very stubborn that I'm not going to sell out. Come what may. If I down, I will not sell out.
Why?
Because I had enough confidence that to me this is the resource generating engine. We are doing 1 or 2 things. To them, this is 1 out of 20 things. We have done whatever we want to do in the quality front. They can't improve on us. We have a strong brand where there is a strong consumer recall franchise, and it will be difficult for them to touch us. Only area where we were weak was the distribution, where they had a strong rural distribution, and then we improvised that within a very short period of time. And then there was this fear amongst people that how can you take the multinational? So when we decided not to sell, our share prices just dramatically dropped. But luckily, I think we gave an assurance that we will take them on. And they invested and they launched the product not once but 2, 3 times. They got some market share.
Which one was
But
it?
not Nihar, Tata Nihar.
Yeah.
And Coco Care. They got something like 12% market share, but not at our cost, at the cost of some other weaker players.
Okay.
So we were able to maintain our market share. We over-advertised. In those 1 or 2 years, we didn't grow in terms of bottom line, which was okay. We were willing to make sacrifices. And at some stage, I think they started losing interest because they were not able to grow. And
So who was the market leader then?
market is Parachute.
The Parachute.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
By then you were market leaders.
Before that only, we had 45, 50% market share.
Share.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they got 10, 12% market share, but not at our cost.
Okay.
So at some stage, something went wrong in Hindustan Lever started getting more realigned to Unilever, and hair oil is not a global business.
Sure.
So maybe they started losing interest, and that's how to tell them that if you're not selling, if you're not really promoting the brand, why don't you sell it off? So that's how they decided to put the brand on the block. And we thought that they will just give it to us on a platter, but they decided to have an auction, and all the big players, Indian players, participated. Not only such as Dabur, Imami, Godrej, Wipro, but we were very clear that we had to get this brand.
Why was it that great?
Because there was a very good fit. Nihar has a very strong brand East, and we had relatively weaker market share in East. Number 2, we know this business, and compared to yours, we saw a great opportunity to reduce costs because we were in this business. Number 3, the fact that it would give us extra market share was another benefit. And fourth is we would prevent some other aggressive competitor to come into them. So we aggressively built, and I think everybody was surprised, including all our competitors who built for this brand, including levers. A lot of people thought we overpaid, but looking back, it has been the best acquisition.
Give me a sense of that, the kind of money that went in there.
This brand came to us in 2006, and I think we got it for 215 crores. And I think today we must be making a profit of 215 crores in that brand, and it will be valued in 3,000-4,000 crores. Yeah. But it is worked wonderfully well.
And how was the feeling when you acquired Nihal?
Oh, it was a feeling of great elation, joy internally, because that fear was very high, and we had to overcome that fear when they launched by calling our field force, distributors field force, to a launch conference and like a war room scenario. And I think luckily everything worked out well.
Some also say that time you actually, when Levers was trying to acquire you initially, before this happened, and you said no. Some also state that, you were not, many people advised you to sell because they felt it was a good time to sell out. Like most of our entrepreneurs today, sell out quickly. But you, of course, didn't want to. But this constant heat that they were trying to put on you, made you want to, show your mettle as well.
Yes.
So is it true that you and Kasanbhai Patel had many conversations that time, because Nirma was a very strong competitor?
I must say I'd gone to meet him once, only specifically because they were fighting levers. And I just went personally to meet him once in that journey, just to understand, and I think that was just one or two hour meeting, just to know how they take on levers and how do we take on levers, So we were fully prepared, and I was prepared to. Because to me, money is beyond a point. It's not important, I think you have to have that. Okay, the pride in owning, creating a brand is far more important than money,
But tell me, do you have a succession plan?
So, besides that, I have appointed a managing director. That itself is a big step.
But not from the family.
Well, my son has joined the board of directors of Marico, so that's one step I've taken. I think it's always contextual succession plan. At some stage, okay, I had to step down because maybe I was reaching a certain age, and he was.
So why did you step down?
Because I think we needed a new blood in the company, new leadership. And it's always good to have, I spent about 30-40 years building businesses maybe, and the business has become also quite complex and bigger. And I think we also had to give opportunity to people down the line, and also to create a succession plan, But separately, I think there is always a conflict. If you're a promoter, what is good for the promoter is what is good for the organization, And I've always used that what is good for the organization comes first, and what is good for the promoters comes second, So if it is good for the organization to have a succession plan and promote somebody who is capable as a managing director, then my personal preference, it should not come in the way of that decision, because it is good for the organization.
Will your son take on your role at some point?
I think, as I said to you earlier, everything is contextual, As of today, we have a managing director, but I don't want to predict future. He's just started a new business 2-3 years back in high-end personal care business, very good line of personal care products, which is without harmful chemicals. So I think let him concentrate on that for the time being, and then I think ultimately we'll take a call as time progresses.
You went through your own journey. How were you as a father to Rishabh? In terms of mentoring him and how he should take on life and what he should do with his career?
I could have done better than what I have done. In the initial phases, I had put him like a management trainee down the line in the company, and I don't think that worked well. In the last 2-3 years, I think I pulled him out, which is a good thing, and encouraged him to start a new business. So I spend much more time with him on his business, and we also have created a family office, Sharp Ventures. So I spend time with him.
So now, in your last 3 years, your learning curve has still been very high.
Yes.
With Sharp Ventures, with your Innovation Foundation, and with Ascent.
Yes.
Right. Talk to me a little bit about, and you also have a mental health foundation as well that helps people who are in depression. How what made you want to get into all these things? I mean, you can very well lead a really good life.
I have to engage. I cannot be idle at home. That's one thing I cannot do. I cannot just go home and sleep and, just not do anything. I will be crazy. So I have to be mentally engaged, fully engaged, I would say. And so when you have time, you start thinking about how do you keep yourself occupied. When I give up, there is always a fear that what will I do,
That's true, yeah.
But then you start exploring, and then, you tend to find out areas where you can keep yourself occupied. So I think I have done that, and a lot of satisfaction one gets in doing new things. You learn much more. So as I mentioned to you earlier, Ascent is an organization which is currently Bombay centric, but we want to set it up all across the country.
What is Ascent first?
Ascent is a learning platform for entrepreneurs to learn from each other, and it is actually a lot of value addition. We are trying to create an ecosystem for entrepreneurs who want to scale up.
So you already have, four things you started that are keeping you busy. Plus you have Marico.
Yeah, plus I speak a lot. On average, I speak 2-3 times a month.
Yeah, you have your speaking commitment.
Speaking commitment and the book commitment, which is now currently...
You're writing a book, yes.
I've written, but it needs to be fine-tuned, and I'm now just signed up with an international organization to help me write that book. And I think...
what's this book going to be about?
The book is going to be my own journey. Professor Ramcharan has agreed to be a co-author with me on the book.
Oh, wow.
So I'm quite excited by that, and that will take some time. I think by the time the book is out, it will be about a year or so.
On that note, thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking time out and talking to us about your journey.
Thank you.